And I'll now take the sedient for this meeting of the Equal Opportunities Forum held on the 30th of November 2022. We have Councillor Kalikis, Councillor Clark. We don't have Councillor Corbett. We have Councillor Ferguson. We have apologies from Councillor McAdams. We have Councillor McGeever, Councillor Razak, Councillor Robb, Councillor Salamati. We don't have Councillor Thompson as yet. Okay, so we'll look out for Councillor Thompson. He intends to join the meeting. And we have a number of officers present, as well as trade union reps and some external participants at today's meeting. Thank you, Chair, and I'll hand back to you for today's business.
Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest? No? Okay, minutes from the previous meeting. Can I move the minutes? Sorry.
Yeah, I'll second that, Chair.
Okay. Is everyone agreeable? Okay. Item 3, annual report on mainstreaming and equalities and diversity, social work resources 2021-22. And can I invite Kiana Stewart to speak, please?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for the opportunity to come along today to present a progress report on mainstreaming equalities within social work resources. My name is Kiana Stewart. I'm a Planning and Performance Manager within social work, and I'm involved in the strategic development and overview of equal opportunities policies, also working alongside operational colleagues to implement policies and statutory duties. Firstly, in terms of the background, within section 3 of the report, you will be aware that the work we do within social work is steeped within a legislative framework that not only provides effective care to meet the needs of people within South Lanarkshire, but also aims to reduce inequalities linking to council outcomes. The range of services provided can be found within the list within section 3.3. As outlined in section 3.5, we cannot underestimate the impact of the last few years and the unprecedented challenges faced by our local communities living with the COVID-19 pandemic. At the height of the pandemic, essential services were prioritised to meet those with greatest need, and although we are now in a recovery period, we are experiencing significant build-up of demand, coupled with the challenges facing social care recruitment nationally. We therefore continue to prioritise our services to those most vulnerable. Social work resources play a leading role in mainstreaming equalities across a number of partnership agendas, some of which are noted within section 4.1. This includes the South Lanarkshire Health and Social Care Partnership, which supports the Integration Joint Board to operationally deliver community-based health and social care services to adults. Unable to share the full extent of mainstream equalities across all areas of service today, this report will provide a broad focus on the progress that social work resources had made against the Council's 5 equality outcomes during 21-22. This hopefully provides a broad range of subject areas that affect different areas of our service throughout the resource. Within section 5, we look at each of those equality outcomes in a little bit more detail. In terms of equality outcome number 1, focusing on those in terms of our employment opportunities and ensuring that this is accessible equally to all applicants. We also focus within our own workforce, ensuring that equality, diversity and inclusion are promoted throughout. And this is done through a number of equality training programmes. This aims to ensure that we have a well-informed workforce that will achieve equality and diversity in all of our activities and responsibilities. There have been over 5,000 equality courses completed by social work staff. 76% of those were completed within the last year. We recognise that our performance in that area could improve, and we agreed through the Social Work Governance Group that certain training programmes would now be mandatory for all employees. This work is now making good progress with local managers focusing and encouraging ongoing training and support to their staff. The use of translation and interpreting services provides equality of access to service users and improves our communication with our service users to ensure that they are fully involved in decisions relating to their care. Over the last year, Language Line has provided services in 13 other languages, including British Sign Language, has been supported within 55 different occasions. In terms of equality outcome number 2, we have recognised over the last year, particularly during the period of the pandemic, that those who were vulnerable or who lived alone may be at risk of hidden harm, particularly in relation to their finances. The South Lanarkshire Adult Protection Committee re-established the Pan Lanarkshire Financial Harm Risk Group to raise awareness of those risks and to share information with other financial institutions and banks to focus on the Banking Protocol Initiative. This ensured that particular questions were asked of individuals during transaction periods where there was any concerns of risk. We have also provided updated information and leaflets to partners and the wider workforce. In terms of equality outcome number 3, Counselling Through School Services is an education initiative that children in the care of social work can also access in the same way that other children and young people do. In addition, social work resources also provide therapeutic support to young people aged between 0 to 26 through the Trauma Recovery Service, where they have experienced abuse or sustained exposure of traumatic events. The service provides immediate response to referrals, and triage takes place to determine the suitability and timeline of supports. In terms of equality outcome number 4 in preventing homelessness and significantly reducing homelessness, this is an area of work where we have developed positive working relationships, particularly with our housing and technical resource colleagues. We have also worked closely with the Scottish Prison Service to support individuals released from prison to access suitable housing. This work to date has proved very successful, with settled and secure accommodation achieved. We also work in partnership with Women's Aid and other partners to ensure the safe, supportive refuge accommodation is available, alongside advice and support to women and children escaping domestic violence. And finally, in terms of equality outcome number 5, to improve the health care and well-being for the most vulnerable within our communities. This area of work is vast, and I have selected a few areas for information for the forum. The Blantyre Care Facility has been a significant council investment aimed at providing a range of technology-enabled homes, transitional care for people, offering short-term rehabilitation and support through a tech zone, which is designed in collaboration with Glasgow Science Centre to showcase how technology-enabled care can be used to support people to live well, safely and independently at home. Our care and support services offer support to adults with a learning disability living within their own home in the community. As the needs of these individuals are changing, it is important that they are fully supported to participate in self-directed support assessments, to have control and choice in the care that they receive. This service has recently been reviewed to ensure that it is fit for purpose and flexible to respond to the changing needs of the service users it supports. We continue to maintain the independence of individuals across South Lanarkshire with a range of technology-enabled care. This includes almost 9,000 community alarms, Connect Me, remote health monitoring and Near Me video consultations. And meanwhile, within our care at home services, we have continued to focus on a far-reaching modernisation agenda over the last year. The implementation of an electronic scheduling system has transformed the way that visits are planned and scheduled and work is allocated, making better use of available resources and providing greater consistency of service to our service users. We have a positive relationship between the Health and Social Care Partnership and Lanarkshire Carers, and this work has provided a strong base to take forward the carer strategy and ensure that resources are prioritised to the direct support of the carers agenda. Inclusion is prevention. I won't go into that in great detail because we have colleagues here today to present on that, and that's focusing on our children and young people's services. So moving on to section 6 of the report. The resource has carried out 6 equality impact assessments over the last year, and we follow the corporate guidance to do this. Within our Appendix 1, we have further information in terms of more detail around each of the 5 outcomes that we've discussed today. And obviously we're here to ask the forum to note the contents of this report, and thank you for your time. Martin and I are here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I'd like to ask a question, really 2 questions, possibly 3. Page 9, 5.1.1. And the table that we have there is service delivery for languages. And at the bottom, it states from 2021 to 2022. It talks about British Sign Language. And I'd like to ask a question. Is this covering 1 year, 1 full year from 2021, or is it from the middle of the year? Or does it cover the 2 year span, the 2 years? So that's my first point. And then when I've received an answer, I'll go on to the second point, if that's okay.
Martin.
That's the mic on now. Thanks for your question. That's over a financial year. That period covers for 21-22, and obviously there'll be updated figures for this coming year when we get to the end of that.
Thank you. So my second question would be in relation to the table of languages. I'd like to give you an example, if that's okay. So a Ukrainian refugee who's deaf, I'm wondering how you would support them in terms of interpretation, because their main language would not be British Sign Language. So how would you solve that issue, the barrier that they would have in terms of languages?
Martin.
That's it now. So apologies for the delay. So the support would be twofold there. It would be obviously we would have an interpreter, and then obviously somebody from British Sign Language accompanying obviously the person to allow that interpretation to be done, if that makes sense. Thank you.
If I can just respond to that, if that's okay. So the person who is Ukrainian would not have access to British Sign Language because their first language would be from their own country. So sign language is regional. So if they're coming here, they wouldn't be able to understand and access British Sign Language because they have a different language. So how would you solve that problem with the barrier to languages? They wouldn't be able to access English or British Sign Language. So obviously they're coming to live here, but there is a barrier to that language.
Okay, thank you. Can I just pick that up and just maybe clarify? What we would do is we'd need 2 interpreters. So we'd need somebody who is able, it's not going to be as straightforward as we think it is, because we've obviously got somebody who's not using British Sign Language, but who would use another, I don't know if we have Ukrainian Sign Language. However, a lot of the interpreters will be able to give us some of the information. So what we would need is, as Martin says, a twofold. We would need somebody who is able to converse in Ukraine, and also somebody who's able then to translate that into English is, we haven't come across this situation, so it is a bit hypothetical at the minute. So it is something that we would need to give quite a consideration to. But we are going to need two interpreters, one with the Ukrainian, but obviously it's not a spoken language, so that's going to give us some barriers there. It's not something, Councillor Ferguson, that we've come across up to this point, but it's certainly something that we would need to look at.
Thank you very much for your response. I am aware that in Glasgow there are refugees from Ukraine, and it's good to be aware of that. So thank you.
I think we're having gremlins today. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Mark?
Thanks very much, Chair. It's not so much a question as just an observation from reading the paper. I noticed on page 16, down at, it's the Appendix 1, page 16, and down at point 12, and it's to do with the community payback orders. And it's just to say that I'm glad to see that there is steady progress being made in the completion of these. And I wasn't planning to speak today, but there was actually a report that I read at lunchtime, and I thought it was pertinent. It was to do, it's been released today, and it shows the number of deaths in Scottish prisons have went up very significantly, and the rise is not attributable to COVID. Now, I think the report's author, one of the co-authors, was actually the mother of a 20-year-old woman or girl, and I'm deliberately going to use her name. It's Katie Allen, who tragically committed suicide while in a young offenders institution. And she was there because of having pled guilty to a very serious offence. It was hit and run whilst under the influence of drink. So I'm not for a second saying that she shouldn't have been in prison, and perhaps she should have been. But certainly it goes to show that prisons are awful environments, and the people who end up there really do need support. And I think the reason I'm mentioning that, because we're at the Equal Opportunities Forum, is to say that the importance of community payback orders being available in a timely fashion and an effective fashion. And I just want to commend the work that's gone in to achieving that here. I think it's a difficult one to talk about, partly because people in the general population maybe not that sympathetic to the people who are in receipt of these orders. But on one hand, I would remind everyone that it protects the community from crime, and it does that by reducing recidivism. It prevents future crime, and it gets people often who are vulnerable for a number of reasons and disadvantaged even before they enter the criminal justice system. It diverts them, it gives them skills and contacts and confidence, and it gives them the means to create better lives and to avoid a never-ending cycle of criminality that leads to more vulnerability, more exclusion. And I think for that reason, the tragedy that I alluded to there, it shows the importance of these being available, and they really were diminished due to COVID for understandable reasons. And I think the fact that that's recovering is incredibly important. And I just wanted to, given that I saw that report today, I just wanted to tip my hat to the efforts that are ongoing to get that service back up and run. And yeah, long may it continue. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. If there's any other questions, can I thank you, Tiana, for that report, and we move on to the next item. That's inclusion and that's prevention, and that's Diane Robbie, accompanied by Ciara Irvin and Nathan Chage. If I pronounced it correctly, excellent, to deliver the presentation.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak to you about the Inclusion as Prevention project. My name is Diane Dobie, and I am a Service Manager in Children and Families Social Work Resources, and I am joined today by my two colleagues, Nate Sheik and Ciara Irvin from Action for Children and Dartington. Okay, so you can see, I'm just going to go right into the presentation, and you can see from the first slide that the name of the presentation with a bit of a headline explaining what the project is about. So Inclusion as Prevention is a community-funded initiative that we accessed in 2018 for a 5-year project. The project was inspired by a shared commitment to supporting a reduction in the volume of young people in South Lanarkshire Council who come into conflict with the law. The project itself commenced in advance of the publication of the promise, but continues to reflect a rights-based preventative approach which is very much aligned with the findings of the Care Review, and it supports Promise Plan 1 in that it supports a reduction in the criminalisation of this group. Apologies, technical error. So you can see from the second slide, it offers an overview of the areas that we're intending to cover in this presentation. The Early Action System changed monies that were accessed from the Community Lottery Fund were offering something different to South Lanarkshire Council. Known as EASC, the EASC fund noted that short-term funding that is traditional and typical of voluntary projects did not lead to sustainability and longer-term outcomes. So the Community Lottery Fund were attempting to do something quite transformational, and they had aligned the fund with research that indicated that a multifaceted approach founded on engagement, improvement activity, evaluation and feedback was essential in order to sustain improvements. And the Inclusion as Prevention approach was based on these foundations. It is a partnership between Action for Children, who Kira works with, who undertakes engagement work, South Lanarkshire Council, and I'm the lead for South Lanarkshire, Dartington Research Design, who Nate's representing, and the Centre for Young People and Justice. And we have Christina Moody from Strathclyde University undertaking the evaluation work for this project. What you'll hear today and what you'll see is that an animation showcase of work that's been co-produced leading to an app in relation to grief and loss. And we're also, you'll hear a wee bit about our aspirations and legacy. You will also hear about the application of our approach from our engagement coordinator and our improvement lead. You'll hear about the tests of change in detail throughout this presentation. Inclusion as Prevention is quite a complicated project, but what we do know is that young people in conflict with the law are a particularly marginalised group. They've experienced social inclusion, they're disenfranchised, and many of whom have experienced grief and loss and live in poverty. Our work is informed by all of these factors. So I've put up this slide. It's a bit of an introduction to, or a bit of embedding some of the points that I've already made. I'm going to now hand over to Nate to take you through that.
Thanks for that, Diane, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me As Diane mentioned, my name's Nate Shiak. I'm the improvement lead for the Inclusionist Prevention Project, and I'm based at Dartington Service Design Lab. The inclusionist prevention approach across the whole programme is centred around pilot or prototype methodology. The concept of cycles of continuous learning and testing of systems change measures. I'm going to paraphrase Murray from the Housing Department at Clackmannanshire Council, who I spoke to yesterday, in a conversation around co-production, and that is that it's nothing like a production process like building the Forth Bridge. It's not a linear process, you know, it's a 5-year systems change initiative, but you have to be willing to go down the sort of rabbit warrens, the sort of direction that young people lead you down. There is to be an overarching theme of, you know, preventative justice in the community across South Lanarkshire, but you have to be open to exploring where that project takes you. And we are now in that final year of the 5-year systems change with eight different tests of change. And a test of change is a pilot project, if you like, a project which has co-production at the heart. Some of you may or may not be familiar with the Arnstein model of participation, which starts off with you know, co-production, people being involved in projects which is tokenistic or perhaps harmful. And then further up that ladder, you have real consultancy, and then you have transformative change. And we hope with the Inclusionist Prevention Programme across the 5 years to have that transformative change with young people leading these tests of change. And what gives us the ability to do that, because you're all experienced people, you'll have heard co-production many times before from other organisations, but it's really the dynamics of the IEP team. As Diane mentioned, we've got Kira, who's the engagement lead, who constantly ensures that our tests of change have young people at the heart and on a platform where their voice is the most important in the room. We have Christina Moody as from CYCJ as the evaluation partner, and what the evaluation partner allows us to do is to ensure there's just-in-time learning, there's continuous learning feeding into the process, and we have a model called Adopt, Adapt, Abandon. And across the 8 different tests of change, which span, you know, sectors like leisure, social work, education, right across the South Lanarkshire Council area, we're continuously learning from the evaluation partner about what's working, how we need to adapt, and like I say, it's far from a linear process. Next slide, please. Thanks, Diane. So IEP is based on these principles. It's based upon social inclusion as prevention. It's based upon advancing a rights-based approach, promoting participation and inclusion of young people. One of the biggest risks in a project like this, when you've got multi-organisations, is that groupthink, that you know, we've been working together for a long time. You start to see what you think might be the right direction, but it's ensuring that young people are at the heart of that direction, strengthening those approaches continuously through the evaluation partner, and ultimately sticking to that goal of reducing criminalisation of young people who might be at risk of interacting with the justice system further downstream. And continuously listening to the voice of those young people involved. So, you know, we've touched upon this about how IEP is about tackling that root cause. It's about preventative justice, ensuring that each of these 8 different tests of change have an impact that will prevent young people across South Lanarkshire coming into contact with the justice system. And that could be through, you know, a variety of means, from, you know, social work relationship-based practice to neighbourhood sports academies, and ensuring there's communities and access to for isolated young people to attend, just having these groups available to them. There's activism resources that have came out of this around gender-based violence, domestic abuse, and these core themes that young people have desired to explore based upon the evidence of the project. So right across all these different sectors in the local authority area, it's all about tackling that root cause. And I'd love to pass over to Kira Irvin, who's going to talk us through the engagement process. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much for having us along today. As both Nate and Diane mentioned, my name's Ciara Irvin and I work at Action for Children. My role is about engagement, so I get the fun part. I get to go out and meet the young people and the community and hear all about what's important to them and their amazing ideas. So this first slide, I'd just like to speak through our engagement process. Initially, it's about getting to know each other. It's about building a relationship. We make sure to meet our young people in a place and at a time that suits them, rather than them fitting our schedules. Initially, it's, as I say, relationship building and getting to know one another, so that the young people are comfortable with myself and I have an understanding of what they want to get out of the process. I explained IAP to each of the groups or individuals who were taking part, and we discussed how they would like to be involved. Sometimes this has been group settings, others it has been one-to-one, sometimes it's online, a lot of it's in person. We discussed in terms of rewards, because we make sure that the young people know just how much we value their input, their expertise, and the rewards have come in various forms. It's about what's suitable for that young person. Sometimes the young people want gift vouchers, sometimes it's awards, other times it's trips, and a lot of the time they tell me, Ciara, we just want you to bring pizza whenever we meet. And it's about what's suitable for the individuals. So we moved from that sort of initial forming stage and we started looking at the community as a whole, understanding what services are, what we mean by that, and seeing what they already know is available and are accessing. We then start identifying what's important to them and any areas for improvement. This then naturally leads to honing in on a specific topic, and we explore that further, identifying areas for improvement and how they would like to see that happen. So we have 8 tests of change, the young people's ideas, all driven by the young people, in terms of how they would like us to take changes forward for them. We continue to engage the young people not only at the ideas stage, but as we have said, co-production. So the young people are involved throughout the entire process, from initial idea generation to implementation, to getting over barriers. Sometimes we've maybe come across some hurdles and we take that information back to the young people and have a discussion, and oftentimes it's the young people who come up with ideas and solutions, ones that perhaps we would never have thought of. And that's what's important about our co-production, is that it's a continuous feedback loop. It's not a case of they give us their idea and we disappear. We're with the young people throughout the journey. So there's 8 tests of change, and as you can see, they're all at various stages of the adopt, adapt, abandon process that Nate described earlier. But today we're going to focus on 4. That's as our relationship-based practice training, our peer-to-peer support workshop, gender-based violence workshop, and grief and loss. So what young people are telling us. For the peer-to-peer workshop, young people were telling us we had a group of justice experienced young people who participated in a programme alongside Street Cones, who helped them to use their lived experience to produce a fictitious film script, capturing their experiences. From this, it was obviously an opportunity for them to discuss their experiences, where they could see improvements, and we discussed with the young people how they would like to move forward with that. The key messages that the young people were saying was that they wished they'd gotten help sooner. It felt as though they didn't get the help that they needed until after they had committed a crime. They also wanted to tell other young people that they weren't alone, that there's supports out there, and that they can make a change. So we then have the relationship-based practice apologies is based on the young people from that same group telling us that they wanted support workers to see them as a person, not a case file, something beyond, focusing more beyond their past or their actions and who they really are as a person. And sorry, I think I've jumped ahead just ever so slightly. The relationship-based practice, to give you more detail from that, what we then created with the young people who were involved in that work. They told us this message and they said, how about some training and supports for these staff members? And the young people part of that group, as well as some care experience young people who were particularly interested in this piece of work, joined via IAP, joined some social workers to design a relationship-based practice training programme. This led to the kind of identified the most important areas to them, what makes good relationship-based practice, activities that would help discussions around about this. And it has been, next week will be session 4 of 4 of this programme. There's been a lot of learning from it. It's landed really well, although in a different way to what we were expecting. And we're having we're realising that actually there's more focus on individual practice and professional experiences rather than anything than you could put into a specific slide or workshop. So the next phase after that will be to review and reflect alongside the young people and the social workers who have taken part in this initial pilot session. Now I can jump on to the next one. So we then have a group of young people who initially decided that they would like to look at, they reviewed our core themes and they initially identified the topic of reducing domestic abuse and the impact on families, children and families. Whilst exploring this topic, it involved meeting with different services, like Women's Aid and Circle. There was a lot of online research and sharing experiences. And at the same, in March 21, I believe you'll probably remember the death of Sarah Everard and then the preceding impact that had on social media and a lot of sort of activism around about that. This led young people to discuss again, their experiences. And the more we looked into gender-based violence, the young people told us, oh, we've experienced that. All the young people, all the young girls in the room had experienced this in some form, but didn't know the term gender-based violence. It now put it into light what this meant. And they said, well, if we're all feeling this, then there must be other young people that's the same and don't know about it. So they wanted to raise awareness, they wanted to see if there was a way of tackling the issue, and they felt that this would be best placed in schools. They felt an animation, a video to illustrate the points and the issues that are around the topic, as well as an accompanying workshop. So the young people wanted to make sure they got as many voices as possible. They decided they wanted to create a survey for other young people across South Lanarkshire. So they were supported by Christina Moody at CYCJ to produce their own workshop, survey. The young people come up with all the questions in it, including long, short, how to get around biases and to ensure that it was an ethical survey. To the point that Christina often tells us that the young people actually come up with new ways of doing the survey that she would be taking forward, including how to bypass specific questions but still complete the survey. So they created a survey. It was implemented in schools and youth groups across South Lanarkshire, and with the results from this, the young people analysed it themselves and have used the findings from that to create the focus of their animation and workshop. Over the summer period there, they designed that, and the next stages for it is to have a trial period at Hamilton Grammar, and then it would be returning to our original design, young people, with that initial feedback before finalising the workshop plans. And the last test of change that I'm going to look at today is grief and loss. The young people chose this topic. Initially we were meeting online, and then we moved to in person, and the young people at that time said that grief and loss was really pertinent to them. Perhaps because, and upon reflection, the young people have said that perhaps this was because it was during COVID, but that of course it's something they had all experienced, and the varying types of supports that they had received. So the main thing that young people found was that actually there was a lot of great services out there for them, both locally and nationally, but they felt that they didn't always know about them, and that actually the services seemed to be more advertised to adults in their community, so teachers, youth workers, social work, etc. And while they found that obviously very beneficial, that these staff members would be able to support young people that they're aware of, they also said there's a lot of young people who suffer in silence, that wouldn't be picked up on, that maybe don't have a close enough relationship with these type of staff members to be able to reach out for that support. So they said, continue advertising in this way, but also can you advertise directly to me as a young person? Therefore, they decided that the best means for this would be through social media. The best means on social media is videos. And the best way to get that across would be animations, because it would be timeless. Now, the most important thing with this is the young people then went and identified the services that they felt were most important. They had a diverse range of services for different needs. So the young people discussed how sometimes they want to speak to somebody they definitely know. Others, they said, oh my goodness, that would be the worst thing possible. I want to speak to somebody that knows exactly how I'm feeling. And that's reflected in the different services that they provided, because each service provides a different type of support. So the young people animated or created the storyboards, they do all the voiceovers. So the most important part is this is for young people, by young people, and we have an example video for you.
Any way to turn the volume up on?
Just building suspense. That is worth it.
Normally with the adverts at the audience.
While we're waiting, can we go on to questions just now? And
Yep.
that might be a good idea while we're waiting for this. Are there any questions just now?
Mark?
Okay. Councillor Clark?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for that presentation. I know we've still got a video to go. I found that really, really helpful. And it was really good to see the engagement with young people in it, rather than just being, given to young people. I think that's really important in engaging them, so we can, help, prevent stuff in the future where they're having to go into the justice system. Catering it for the needs of each young person. As you said, some people might want to speak to someone they know, some people might not do. And one of the things that I've also found is that a lot of services, as you said, there are a lot of services for young people and so on, but they don't often know about them, might not be advertised to themselves. So that's something I've experienced as well. But it's really good that the use of social media advertisement and so on is being used, because that's often the best way to reach young people. Because often young people they might not be able to go and speak to someone to then go and get the support on their behalf. A lot of young people might just prefer to go and do it. They might only be able to just go and do it themselves. So that's really important. The one question I have is that I think you've touched on it briefly. I'm sorry if I've missed some of it, but do you guys provide a pathway for young people to into volunteering, or provide opportunities for them to help other young people, like deliver sessions and so on? Because obviously they've experienced it and they can help other people.
Okay, can I get one of you to answer, please? Peter, give us 1 minute. It's about Graham once again.
No problem.
That's me now. So thank you so much for your support, first of all. In terms of opportunities, we actually have one of our young people who is a volunteer now. So he was involved in one of our other Tests of Change, and it has sort of got a slight sort of conclusion, if you like. It's moving on to the sort of implementation phase, and he expressed an interest in, what about your other Tests of Change, Kira? What other services are going on? And when explaining that, he had asked if that was something he could be involved in. So yeah, absolutely, he's been a part of that. It's actually been really great to see his confidence grow as well. Part of the sessions, it was initially shadowing myself, and a few sessions in, he had been sort of leading one of the groups, and afterwards I had obviously said how well he'd got on, and he says, I was just thinking, what questions do you guys normally ask? And I went into my own, and it was really nice to see. In terms of some other volunteering opportunities, I don't think I explained this one clearly earlier, but one of the other projects, Tests of Change, that we're running is the peer support workshop. So this is a young people who had been involved in that fictitious film script. What they had also said they wanted to happen from that was for their video, their script, to be used to support other young people. Now, I guess the programme is sort of like a diversion programme, if you like. The young people have identified young people who are maybe at risk, and what they're saying is to support the young people to know that they're not alone, that there are other people out there who have similar experiences, there are supports out there, and how they can get them. And as I say, that's to be peer-led, so we're hoping that some of the young people with experiences can support that, and that was again what the young people wanted to be able to do, to be relatable in the workshop.
Thank you, that's really helpful.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go back to the video now, because I think we've got the technicians in to see if we can get this going. Technology. While we're waiting for that, can we get a copy of the videos sent out to the councillors so that we can share this amongst ourselves? And out to the constituents as well, please. And also a copy of the survey, just to see what the questions were.
Go2 is an organisation that can help young people learn ways of coping with grief and friends. He loves his mum very much. One day he unfortunately experiences the sudden tragic loss of his beloved mother. He feels Go2 is an organisation that can help young people learn ways of coping with grief and loss. Joe and his mother are best friends. He loves his mum very much. One day he unfortunately experiences the sudden tragic loss of his beloved mother. He feels hurt, sad,
I was just going to add something to Councillor Ross Clark's point about opportunities for the young people. I'm not sure if there's too much feedback to do that, but hopefully just building on Kira's point around opportunities for the young people throughout this process. I remember the early engagements, the first workshops in the co-design process is all about relationship building and trust building. But I remember the comments of some of the young people in the room saying, you know, you're the experts. You know, we've got an animator in this room helping us build this video. We've got, you know, expert facilitators in this room. And that was their language. It was, you know, you're the experts in this room. But shifting that mindset by maybe the third week of the process was something that was really noticeable. You know, the young people were in charge of the direction that these videos were going down, these assets were going down, the narrative, the colour palette, the sequences and scenarios they're focusing on. And that shift from who the expert in the room happened so quickly, led by the young people. And it's something that we picked up on as facilitators was, you know, who's the expert in this room now? Because it's not us, you know. And the people who were supporting the process, the animators, the designers in the room, helping the young people create these assets, they have seen a real shift in what it means to do design. You know, design's a specialist skill, animation's a specialist skill done by people in dark rooms on their own. But this has been a very, very different approach where the young people have taken us down this journey to create these assets. So in terms of opportunities for the young people, just for Councillor Clark, I just wanted to add there was that real mindset and confidence shift was really noticeable. And yeah, that's all I wanted to add, if that's okay.
I'm mindful that it's nearly 3 o'clock, so can we take a 5-minute break, then we'll get back to this. Okay, thank you. We're going to give it a final try with the video, and if it doesn't work, we're just going to find out also if online, if you can hear the video as well. If someone can let us know, that would be great. So can we give it a try?
Go2 is an organisation that can help young people learn ways of coping with grief and loss. Joe and his mother are best friends. He loves his mum very much. One day he unfortunately experiences the sudden tragic loss of his beloved mother. He feels hurt, sad, angry and shocked by his experience.
I can hear that. Can everybody else hear that?
Very faint.
Very faint.
Isolating himself at school. He doesn't hang out with his friends or talk to anyone as much anymore. One night,
And online, can you hear it online?
was scrolling through his feed. He
Yeah.
reads about what they can do for young people experiencing grief and loss and wonders.
Councillor Rob, can you hear that?
He sends them a
Oh, sorry, no.
Okay, we'll stop it there then. We'll get this shared out, if that's okay, and we'll just go straight on to the questions.
Had a question, Councillor Rob.
Right, Kirsten, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. It's so inspiring to hear the difference that involving people, young people particularly in service design, can actually make to provide innovative solutions. So more of that would be great. So my question was really to ask for the slides, which we're going to send round. I was particularly interested, just noticed a wee snippet about young people getting into trouble by breaking into play facilities. I'm just really interested to hear more about that, because we want young people to play and try and find solutions to where facilities are locked up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. First, I need to apologise because I wasn't too sure if the presentation's finished or not before we went into questions. So is the presentation finished before we go on?
Yeah, that's fine. I think we can conclude the presentation just to say that you can access the videos and all the slides on the we've got a website, inclusionisprevention.org, so you can access it from there.
That's excellent. Can that just be emailed to us as well, please?
Yes, of course, yes.
Okay. And next question is from Janine. Oh yes, sorry, apologies. Can somebody answer Councillor Rob's question? I'm doing really well today.
Hello, and again, thanks for your lovely feedback. Yes, so that test of change actually came from some detached youth work. I was kindly accompanied by some of the community police officers in summer 2020, I believe it was, and we were speaking to some young people across Cambuslang and Rutherglen, between parks and green spaces and stuff. So my main question to the young people was what kind of services and supports do they have in the area, what could be done differently, and throughout all the different pockets of young people and individuals that we spoke to, the young people were continuously telling us that they wanted access to the good quality sports pitches. These are the pitches that are often attached to the schools, and the young people explained that okay, they are able to play football in the park, but the park that they were currently in at the time was it was slanty, and the goals didn't have any nets. And they says, well, why can we not play in that big sports pitch there that's lying empty? So what actually happens is the young people climb the fences. Residents will then call the police. The police come and escort them off. This is obviously leading to negative relationships with the police and can obviously heighten further their route into coming into conflict there. So we worked with Youth, Family, Community Learning and South Lanarkshire Leisure and Culture to access the football pitch or the sports pitch, sorry, at Stonelaw High School, and we had it where there was a youth worker on site to help the young to kind of sort of facilitate, but the real thing that the young people were saying that they wanted it informal, that they could just turn up when when suited with their friends. They weren't having to take part in specific training or be part of a team. They just wanted a kickabout with their friends. They also wanted it to be open to their other friends who maybe weren't specifically there for football. So as I say, a youth worker from Youth Family Community Learning led it there, and Leisure and Culture granted us that access. The group, it started end of summer 21 and run until October 21, and the results spoke for themselves. There was no specific advertising, it was all word of mouth, and the numbers grew from the first week. There were 6 young people. By the end of the programme, there were over 40 young people, and the young people had all, as I say, just heard through word of mouth. Excellent feedback, both from the young people, the youth worker involved, but also the leisure staff, who explained that they were actually building better relationships with the young people because they were seen in an even footing and were able to speak to them in a bit happier and more positive conversations rather than having to ask them to leave. And also importantly was there were no reports of pitch break-ins during that time.
Thank you. Janine?
I don't know if you guys can hear me. My internet's dipping in and out here. Can somebody just signal if you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thanks, Mo. I wanted to ask a bit, and thank you very much for that report. As others have said, it's fantastic to see how much engagement you've had from our neurodiverse young people, because we know that, you know, a lot of particularly autistic children have school anxiety, and that can be seen as a bit of a pipeline if it's not addressed, and if children aren't supported with that, then, you know, they then start school refusing. That's a bit of a pipeline to becoming involved with the justice system in some cases. So it's, you know, an issue that's been identified there sometimes has been the lack of services that are, you know, able to accommodate autistic and other neurodiverse kids. So it was just to find out what engagement you'd had there, and how you would, you know, approach kind of including children with neurodiversity. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, we haven't specifically sought out young people from a neurodiverse background, but we're very conscious of the research and the overrepresentation of young people with neurodiverse and other sort of hidden disabilities who are involved in both children and adult justice services. So we were actually reflecting on this earlier, and amongst, we haven't screened for neurodiversity, but it has come up in some of the engagement work with young people in their communication. We've been conscious of that in how we communicate and engage and respond to those young people, to include their views, their voice, and in our responses to supporting that group of young people. So they've been very much part of the natural process of the inclusionist prevention work.
Thank you. Any more questions? Mark?
Thanks very much, Chair. It's just to pick up on Janine's point there, actually. I'm wondering, is there a difficulty or a challenge in reaching marginalised or isolated individual young people as opposed to those that are that maybe have pretty decent, pretty large peer groups and, you know, social networks already? I could imagine that'd be quite a challenging thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's it's a feature of young people who are in conflict with the law that they live in poverty, they're in marginalised groups, they've often become care experienced, they're overrepresented in terms of a range of different issues, really. So it's very much informed how we work. It's partly why we've got an engagement worker who's out in the community doing a sort of almost like an assertive outreach approach to ensure that we engage. We've also, from listening to the voice of young people, we have a whole system approach service for 16 to 21-year-olds who are either on the edge of or involved in justice services. And we're in the process of working through a sort of young people in conflict with the law champions group who are helping to support workers in how they relate to this group and giving them information and guidance on that. And we talk that through at our different partnership meetings, like the Community Justice Partnership and also in the GIRFEC steering group, and are learning from some of the practices that are already going on. And one of the ones that struck me recently was actually from the fire service, who had said that they'd tried to leaflet people about prevention of fires in their homes, and the people who were actually at risk of this were not engaging with them. So they had actually driven a fire engine into the street, and they sat there, and then there was this kind of natural process of like people coming out their houses and going, "What are you doing here?" And through that, they were able to get the message across. So it's kind of working in awareness of those issues and just trying to be as creative as possible, because the young people that we're working with aren't always in mainstream school. They're not, they're not visible. So actually just being very aware of that, and that's a very big part of our work, is just trying to find unique and imaginative ways to engage and sustain people in working with us.
Janine?
Thanks. I wanted to thank you for your previous answer, and just thinking it was interesting that you guys have been talking about that, earlier today, and I'm just wondering about that. There must be a lot of young people who are maybe undiagnosed, but would have a neurodiversity there, or perhaps a really low level learning disability or something like that. Would you see yourselves as being future referrers, or being able to sort of link in with all the other organisations and agencies that are out there to kind of try and refer people on to get diagnosis or get support or appropriate services that where you guys aren't able to meet that need?
So I think part of the sustainability of the Inclusionist Prevention Project is that the existing resources within in South Lanarkshire Council should be better informed about how we engage and how we co-produce and how we work to ensure that we sort of implement that public health approach and actually have a mind to the underlying factors that are associated with young people becoming in conflict with the law. So we engage with the arts services. We're working in partnership with child and adolescent mental health. We have been exploring leaflets and communication to be provided within our local court services, so that there's a better understanding of, I suppose, the communication skills and what's missing, so that these young people, there isn't a kind of misinterpretation of that young person's needs because of the issues. So I would say that we've got a way to go. It's a work in progress, but it's something that in the young person, the 12 to 18 young person service, and the whole system approach and our continuing care aftercare, as well as our localities, we're connected to arts and we're really committed to doing what we can and yeah, that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? I have one. You know, I was looking at the 8 tests of change, and I noticed that you had mentioned football, and you gave a very good example. I think that's going to be more prevalent now with the cost of living and the fact that families won't be able to pay for their kids going into football clubs and football classes. And I think with that, there's going to be a problem where, you know, the children want to play football or sports and they don't have access to it because they're not paying into any clubs. So I can see there's going to be a bigger demand more than ever for these services.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Sorry, Diane. Yeah, one of the points I wanted to add on that is that with the neighbourhood sports hubs, if you like, so it's not just about football, but opening up these facilities within the community for sports and for, you know, community-based work. It's an example of just how simple systems change can be. Just by opening up these facilities, we can have that massive difference that Ciara spoke about. Absolutely take your point on the current climate out there around cost of living and things like that. But speaking to the South Lanarkshire Leisure team that are running these events, they're doing fantastic work already. You know, they were doing fantastic work at opening up these opportunities for young people and opening up these facilities before IEP came along. But what they perhaps kind of struggled with and what IEP can help with is, for example, the referral process or the awareness of the fact that these venues and these events exist in the first place, as well as the evidence that they work. So some of the guys in South Lanarkshire Leisure who have been running these events, they've been capturing the voices of young people and capturing the voices of their parents on how great these events are and these facilities are, but actually being listened to across the locality, that evidence getting out there, and what it looks like and what it takes to run a neighbourhood sports academy, from the infrastructure, the awareness of getting into the young people into it in the first place, and the benefit. It's almost like a communication support from IEP. It's raising awareness, it's supporting the fantastic work that they're already doing. And for me, with that test of change, that's sort of where IEP comes in, because they're doing great work already. It's just the locality, right across South Lanarkshire, knowing about it. And whether that's a young person knowing about it, or whether that's funders and people within the council knowing about it, that's where IEP, certainly my role, has been supporting. But Diane, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Okay, thank you, Diane, Ciara, and Nat for the presentation and also for answering the questions. Okay. And 5, the forward programme for the Equality Opportunities Forum. Can I ask Jill to come in?
Okay, thanks very much, Chair. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
So that's great. So this report outlines the broad structure of, or the proposed broad structure of future forum meetings going forward, reflecting a specific resource focus at each meeting, a bit like the format that we've seen today, where the focus has been on social work and its services. In addition, we've looked at all of the suggestions from members and tried to allocate those suggestions to appropriate meetings according to the resource or service which has responsibility for those areas. So, for example, there was a request for information about equipment for disabled children, about dropped curbs, and about toilet facilities for people with disabilities in the community. These items all fall under the responsibility of Community and Enterprise Resources, so will be picked up at the March meeting when they are presenting their mainstream report. Other requested agenda items, such as religious education in schools, sectarianism in schools, and LGBT+ issues in schools, will all be dealt with at the education meeting, which is scheduled for June, either in the mainstreaming report or in a separate agenda item on that day. In addition, there was another item circulated, I think by Councillor Ferguson, which was about BSL in the school curriculum. And in conversation that we've had with education, they will cover this in the June meeting as well. The requests for items from members were really wide-ranging and diverse. It was really good to see, and we hope to be able to cover most of them using this approach. One item that we wouldn't be able to cover in the normal meeting schedule was a request for visits to places of worship. And we had a brief chat about this at the pre-agenda. And our suggestion is that we have small groups from this forum's membership and that they should take part in visits out with the current meeting schedule. And if that's acceptable, we'll bring forward more on this to a future meeting. Could I ask members to approve the report?
Okay. Can we, are there any questions? Firstly, I think the one with Grant Ferguson, the email he had sent, I think he was looking for that to be a discussion for as soon as possible rather than June. And I think he wanted to discuss this so he can form some part of a motion for later on. So I think that I would maybe recommend that we put that through for the next meeting and maybe get education to work on this for the next meeting so that Grant can put together some form of a motion that he wants to put together rather than wait till June.
So education would need to be part of that discussion, and we can have conversations with them between now and the new year. And if there's a particular date in mind that you have for a committee meeting for a motion, if you let us know what that is, then we can try and work towards that. But certainly we would need some more detailed discussions with education round about that particular item.
Okay, I do understand, but like I said, if a councillor comes forward with something that's very close to their heart, then I always like to give it preferential treatment because of because of the nature of the issue, and so I would like that to be done first meeting next year. Grant, are you happy with that?
Councillor Ferguson's happy with that. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, can we just speak to education and tell them to speak to Grant?
Of course. Of course.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And is everyone happy with the timeline apart from that? Yeah, there's no questions. We're fine with that, Jill. Okay. Can I ask, when we're talking about the future events, and totally understand the places of worship, visiting them, but I think there's a couple of things that we can work on from scratch, from go next year, and that would probably be Pride Week, for instance. That I think that could be worked on for next year, and we can reach out to the LGBTI community and do something in tandem so that we can do a joint work for that. And the second one was I was looking at the religious beliefs one, and my thinking was, and I'd like to open this up for debate, is that we invite the religious groups to our corporate dining facilities, and we ask them to help take part in whatever the event is. Maybe it's Hanukkah, maybe it's Eid, or whatever it is. So we reach out to all the different communities, and I'm talking about the Jewish faith, the Sikh faith, Hindu faith, Muslim faith, all of the faith, Buddhist faith, and the communities, and see if we can do something joint in our corporate facilities. And the reason for this would be that it would help break down some barriers, and also that would be great for the councillors and the officers to go down and meet up with them to celebrate whatever the event's going to be. And that would be, in a way, break the ice more than anything else, and it would be help with the communication when we reach out to them. That's just two of the things up for discussion just now. If there's anybody want to comment? Mark.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, if at all possible, I'd certainly like to be part of something like that. I think most members would. It's certainly any way of reaching people who are maybe marginalised from the council, maybe don't see it as something that represents them, I think then that's to be encouraged. So yeah, it sounds like a great idea to me.
I don't see anybody else. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I think we'd probably need to have a bit of discussion round about the detail round about that and see what is feasible and would work within, obviously if you're bringing people into the restaurant, etc. There, we'd need to get some idea of what form that would take, so we can maybe discuss that separately.
The idea, really, I'll flesh out a wee bit just now, is that if we bring the community in, they will do most of the setting up, and we can just facilitate our facilities, and more than anything else, and let them do the heavy lifting. But at the same time, my thinking is that rather than it being officer-led, it'll be an officer partnership with whatever the community is. And no, I'm keen to discuss this further anyway, Kay, but this is just up for discussion for here because, again, with Pride Week as well, I think we could speak to North as well and see if we can do something joint up with North as well, and then reach out to the LGBTI community and see if we can do something joint. And again, that would mean that it wouldn't take the officers as much time, but it will help if the officers went in partnership with the different groups, and then I think that would help a fair bit. Like I said, very keen to discuss this anyway, Kay, but I just wanted to bring this up in this forum because I think, as a rule, that for instance, Pride Week's been long overdue, and I think it'd be great to try and get the ball rolling for next year. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair. I think there's some good points there around engaging with these groups, and simply with the the LGBTI plus community. I know in Hamilton this year there was some sort of a Lanarkshire Pride. I know they were wanting to do some, kind of a march or more like a march like you have in Glasgow, Edinburgh, elsewhere in the country. So I know that's something they're working on. So it'd be a good idea for us to, engage with things like that. It doesn't necessarily need to be a speaker, but just to see what we can do to kind of support that and go along. Because I know in Hamilton they had some drag acts at the bandstand when they had the markets and so on, and that received some really good engagement with that. So I know that the BID are doing stuff on that as well. So it'd be really good to have that engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? No. Okay. And there's no urgent business. I think we've discussed the other point that was with Grant's email. So we've discussed that, and I would like to thank everyone for attending the meeting. Apologies for the technical glitches. And I've just noticed I actually hate the camera the way it's angled at me because I'm losing a lot more here than I thought I was.
I know the feeling.
So can we get a filter, please, put on so that it makes it look a bit better? Thank you very much.